everybody, and welcome to week 2. So this week we're jumping right into it. Like, you're going to start drafting your first essay. The first thing that you need to do, though, is look in the October 11th through October 17th folder and read some of the resources there to help you. So when you open this week's assignments, you'll see a section called The Writing Process, Part 1, Creating the Draft. And then there's a bunch of blue links underneath it: audience, brainstorming, introductions, etc., right? So you're going to start by reading each of those. And when you click on them, I'm letting it open so I can tell you. It's going to take you to a new page from the Writing Center at like UNC Chapel Hill. And then in that new page, it's going to have a bunch of information for you about how do I determine audience, how do I write a thesis, right? How do I develop paragraphs, what goes in a conclusion, right? So what I would suggest is read all of it first, but also know that it is here and you can come back to it all semester, right? Like, that's going to live there, those resources, if you ever get stuck or you aren't exactly sure what to do and you think, what goes in the introduction, or what goes into the conclusion, or how should I get started on something? Come back and look at those examples for you, right? The next thing you're going to read is linked right under that, and it's called the narrative. So when you click on that, it will open in a new tab as well, and that is a discussion of storytelling, basically. Like, how do we format a narrative? How do we make sure that our stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end? So once you've read everything, then you need to look at the assignment. So your first essay is a literacy narrative, and that means you are telling a story about a time in your life that was important for the development of reading and writing. It could be a story about your favorite teacher and a time you wrote something that was really significant to you. It could be a story about a life event that inspired you to write. It could be a story about a struggle that you overcame in your writing life. I have seen students in the past write essays about their struggles with ADHD in writing, about struggles with reading disabilities in writing, or struggles with speech disabilities in writing. I've also seen students write about a time that writing was very important to them. So, the birth announcement of their first child, or a letter to a deceased parent, or keeping a gratitude journal. It can be anything you want it to be about, but you need to pick one moment to really focus in on. And then you're going to tell the reader a story about that moment, right? So your literacy narrative needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in the beginning, you need to introduce us to the idea, what's the moment you're telling us about, set the scene, and then you need to have a thesis statement at the end of that first paragraph where you explain, here's how this moment connects to how I currently feel about reading and writing, right? How it connects to my idea of what literacy is. Then you're going to tell us your story with lots of good detail. Right? So what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? Right? Where appropriate. And then at the end, you're going to write a conclusion where you tell us, so what and what now? And by that I mean, how do the story that you just told us, how does that relate to you as a writer? How does that influence the way that you feel about reading and writing? And then where do you want to go from here? Right? Like, what next? So that's sort of the assignment. If we look at the assignment in detail, a couple of things I want to make sure that I point out to you. Regardless of our backgrounds, our ideas of literacy often become deeply ingrained as good or bad without much thought from us as to how these views came to be. As a result, many of us have feelings about writing that could benefit from a thoughtful and honest, close self-examination. So the idea here is we want you to really think about yourself as a writer. What is your relationship to reading and writing like, and why? What were those moments that were really formative for you? So when you are choosing a moment to tell about in your story, you need to think very critically about what moments shape you as a writer. Okay, so that's how we're going to choose. And then you need to bring your narrative to life by using concrete, vivid details. So have you ever heard the phrase show, don't tell? That's what you're doing here. You're supposed to be creating for the reader an image so that they can be in that classroom with you. They can experience, they can like put themselves in the place, imagine what it was like for you in that moment as much as possible. Okay. The minimum is 900 words. This should be MLA format. So that means 12-point font, double spaced, and you should have your MLA heading, your name, my name, the class, the date, and then last name and page number in the top right-hand corners of every page. Okay, the your name, my name, class, date only has to go on the first page, but last name, page number, top right-hand corner of every page. And then you will turn in the rough draft this week under narrative assignment 2, like you'll click it and you'll submit assignment, by midnight on Sunday. Then what's going to happen is I'm going to give you written feedback on your narrative essay, and then I will invite you to meet with me at some point if you would like to discuss that feedback. Now, you're not required to do this because we are an asynchronous class. That means we don't meet as a class, but I find that especially for the first essay, it's really helpful for students to just 10 minutes chat with me about any questions, comments, concerns that you have, right? So we can sort of talk through how the commentary went. It's due Sunday. I will have them commented on by the end of the week. I will invite you to send me some times when you're available. And if you would like to chat with me, we will pick a time, not next week, but the week after, to chat about it while you're revising before the final draft of the essay is due. Email me if you have questions.